Welcome to the introductory video on reading comprehension. We're going to focus today on how to get the hard questions right. So the focus of these videos is on the hard questions. Now I want to just say that this will apply to all of reading comprehension, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, it doesn't really matter. So this should really be a full reading comprehension series. However, a lot of you are probably interested in how do you get those last few questions where you basically know what to do with reading comprehension, but there's always a few tricky questions. So I want to give you guys tips to really help you with those. All right, how should you use these videos? I highly recommend that you watch this reading comprehension video and the next few after it in order, and that you practice them. You may be really tempted to just try to skim through the video to find some magical word or phrase that I might tell you that would unlock some secret. And there might be a few things I say that will be immediately helpful like that. But let me assure you that to get the best results, you should watch this video and the next few slowly in order and then practice them. I'm confident that if you do that, you will see a significant improvement, and probably in a fairly small amount of time. All right, how does this video relate to previous videos? Well, in previous videos we talked about how to write a summary, and so as part of that we said understanding the article was kind of important, and we discussed that in the bullseye video 2.3. So step one in writing well is understanding what you want to write about. So I kind of just brushed that under the rug, but you may have been thinking how do I do that well? And so that's why we're doing this video as well. That's how it ties into those earlier ones. All right, this really quickly, where does reading comprehension show up? It shows up in tons of places, at school, at work, in life. So at school, I'm sure you guys already know this, so I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Essays, short responses, multiple choice questions. You have to read books, articles. In class for standardized exams, so in the US some of these are the SAT, ACT, SHSCT, you name it. If in other parts of the world you have your own exams, doesn't matter. At work, one example, you may be a doctor and you have to read a medical journal and understand what you just read. In life, maybe you're reading some sort of important article on health, on anything, for yourself, for your family. So understanding what you've read is a pretty important skill. All right, so I would be lying to you guys if I said, hey, this is really gonna cover everything and you're gonna be awesome after this video, because there are a few prerequisites and additional areas besides these videos. So I wanna get that caveat out of the way. Some of you may have a limited vocabulary and limited knowledge of phrases, idioms, history, ideas, etc. So for example, if you're a third grader trying to understand a college level reading or college level book, no amount of tips I'm going to give you guys is really going to fix that problem. So just keep that in mind. And so it's going to take time to gradually build all this vocabulary and all this other stuff up through practice and experience. By the way, I'm going to do a separate video on how do you build vocabulary in the future, so that's why I've put that in a box for vocabulary. Also, even if you do have these issues, a lot of the times you can use the context to figure it out. So you may not know one word, but if you read around the word a little forwards, a little backwards, you might figure it out. But that said, if the material is just way too advanced, let's say there's 10 reading comprehension questions, if you can't even get 2 of them, you might not be ready to apply the tips in this video. So just want to get that out of the way. So with that said, let's get started. All right. So let's just discuss what the root cause of your problems might be. So I suspect, now I could be wrong, but I suspect for many of you, your approach is probably the same approach I used to have, which is you skim the article and then you rush to the question. So in other words, you put about 20% of your time and effort into racing through the article like a madman or a madwoman, and then you kind of frantically go back and forth. You read the questions, you think about the choices, you keep going back and forth. So you're kind of spending 80% of your energy trying to get to this. And so like that's basically your approach. All right, so I could be wrong, but that's a really common issue. Okay, and so what you've probably found if you're doing this is, you might be getting 80 or 90% of the questions right, but there's just those last 2 or 3 questions that you can never seem to get right. Or maybe like you had a good day and then you can't get them right. And you're probably, I used to be one of these people too, you're probably thinking, oh, that's a bad question. If it were a good question, I would have gotten it right. So that's probably what's going on, right? That's your approach. And that's the root of the problem. So let's get to the solution. So what is the solution? I'm just gonna say one thing. So like, again, I confess, I was one of you. It's really tempting because you get all the points from doing the questions. Why spend your time on reading the article? All right, so the solution is, I'm gonna ask you guys one question. Now this question will lead to everything. You might think, this is too simple. Okay, so my question is, do you care? Do I care about what? Do you care about what you're reading? So for many of you, as I know for myself in the past, the honest answer would be no, I really don't care about this article. I just want to get the question right. I just need the points on the exam or whatever. All right. So if you don't care, you're going to have a really tough time. So if you don't actually care, make yourself care. Find ways for you to care, or for the time being, pretend that act as though you care. Act as if you care, okay? So in other words, what's your attitude? These are related. So if your attitude is that you don't care, none of the tips I give you, you won't be really applying them to the full extent. Okay, so in the next few videos, I've just laid out the outline for the next few videos of all these tips, and we're gonna go into each one of these in depth. So tip 1 will be summarize each paragraph unless it's a story. Tip 2, we're going to go into active versus passive reading. Tip 3, breadcrumbs or sensitivity. And tips 4 through 6 will be specific tips for multiple choice questions. This is after you've already read the passage. So once you're at the question choices. Now, this is roughly in order of most important to least important. So if you want to see the biggest improvement, you're probably going to get that from number 1, a little more from number 2, a little less. And finally, like if you just done almost everything, but you need that last little bit, then this might be what you need. All right, so that's the layout for the next few videos. Now at this point, you might have seen some of these. So a lot of you, I'm sure, have been told by somebody, your teachers, parents, whatever, that you should be summarizing as you read. You might have seen this active, passive, these terms in your English class. Teachers may have told you. And so at this point, you're like, okay, well, I clicked on this video. I thought you were going to tell me something like really magical and cool. I mean, maybe I don't know what you mean by that, but the breadcrumbs bit. But so basically, like, dude, I already know this. Okay. That, by the way, at your age, I would, no matter what the age, I'm guilty of this myself. So the magic is not in looking like, oh, are these new words? The magic is going to involve these 3 steps. So watch the videos in full. That means like really slowly make sure you're understanding everything I'm saying. If something is confusing, watch it again, write me a comment, tell me, you're confused, you did a bad job explaining it, whatever. So watch the videos, these next few on reading comprehension, then use the tips. Now, like, you may have understood it intellectually. So for example, if I tell you to summarize, you're like, okay, I'm summarizing. So use the tips. But then here's where most of the people go wrong. And this is where it's certainly helpful to have guidance from a teacher, parent, or even a peer. But you can still make a lot of headway yourself. Practice. So I may tell you these tips and you may be like, oh, he told me to summarize, so I'm summarizing. I've improved a tiny bit, but not by much. You need to get better at these. So you may be summarizing and doing a terrible job at it. You may be trying to do this, but doing a terrible job at it. So if you're not good at these, it's not just like I'm doing them. So if you're not good at them, then you're getting like 10% of the benefit. So make sure you're doing like a really good job at each of these, not just using it. Okay, so that's in response to dude, I already know this. And so with the practice, I'll just leave you guys with the thought that intelligent, the quote is practice makes perfect, but I'd like to add intelligent practice makes perfect, because if you're just practicing, you can practice till you're blue in the face and not get a lot of results. So I'm really confident that if you guys use these tips, you will see a major improvement really quickly, but you got to put in the work, you got to put in the practice, and make sure that you're doing these very thoroughly and carefully, not sloppily, like, oh, okay, summarize, I'm sort of doing it. No. Is this a top-notch summary? Are you doing a top-notch effort at this? So really see how well you're doing these, not just whether you're doing them. All right, so I'll leave you guys with that, and I will see you guys in these next few videos.